Hi there. Welcome to Apple World. So Tina Knowles is at long last ending her silence on the separation and spilling the tea on what prompted everything. Also, it seems as though she totally holds Richard to blame for the accident of their marriage. What your identity is what you are, what you've done, what you resemble, and what you have. You're, an individual. You're an individual. Furthermore, when something strikes you like that, it takes your breath away. Also, Tina at long last talked about the separation. Following quite a while of hypotheses in the media, the mysteries she uncovered about their marriage are really stunning on the grounds that it seems as though she has had laments about the marriage all along. Did Richard truly maneuver her toward marrying him? Orson is shaking. Richard Lawson, Tina Knowles' spouse, is currently going to be her ex-child. A great deal's been going on. They're getting a separation after, what? 8 years of marriage? So in the event that you all felt that Tina Knowles' separation would have been without a ton of show. Indeed, you thought wrong, since it's beginning to appear as though we will get much more dramatization than we expected. As per sources, Tina is presently blaming Richard for her adoration, bombarding her, and maneuvering her toward marriage. Presently, there have been a few pretty wild claims, and we will separate them all since there is a great deal to unload here. Presently, in the event that you're asking why Tina felt caught in the marriage, this is on the grounds that she felt like she didn't have a decision. At the point when it came to the marriage, Richard had been seeking after her determinedly for quite a while before he at long last wore her out and she consented to wed him. What's more, when I say seemingly forever, I imply that in a real sense, since he had been chasing after her before Beyonce was even conceived, and he began putting the continues on her when she was pregnant with Beyonce, which was truly wild in light of the fact that not exclusively was she vigorously pregnant, but she was likewise a lot of hitched to Matthew Knowles at that point. The ring on her finger didn't make much difference to Richard in light of the fact that it was unexplainable adoration for him, despite the fact that he was likewise hitched by then. Insane, correct? What's more, the tea thickens. So assuming that you're thinking about how they even met, indeed, Richard's more youthful sister, Gwen, was Tina's amigo in those days. Furthermore, when Tina went to visit Gwen one day, she ran into Richard, and that is how they met. Presently, similar to what I said, he didn't mind at all that she was pregnant or that they were both married individuals. However, Tina, obviously, turned him down since, indeed, she was pregnant and they were both hitched to others. However, the fact that she turned him down doesn't imply that he was prepared to take no for a response. Furthermore, he kept on goading her until, in the long run, he wore her out and she consented to be companions with him. Discuss companion drafting. All things considered, they kept up with their fellowship for a long time until they at last began dating after her separation from Matthew in 2011. Yet, we should return to that shortly. So Richard got separated from his better half, Denise, in 1989, and he quickly compelled Tina to dump Matthew for him. He knew about the difficulties and battles that Tina was facing in her marriage, and he attempted to count on that to get Tina to leave her marriage. Also, when I say difficulties, I mean that in a real sense, since there were bits of hearsay that Matthew had been undermining her for the vast majority of their marriage. The bits of gossip were that Matthew had a few illicit relationships. However, Tina decided to deliberately ignore Stevie to the BS since she needed to save her marriage, and, furthermore, one of her girls to grow up with the two guardians. Not entirely settled to stick close to Matthew through various challenges, and she recently continued to dismiss Richard. However, as per Beyonce's Young Life vocal mentor, David Brewer, things in the marriage turned out to be considerably more stressed when Matthew went to drugs in his detailed storybook, which he composed. It turns out he was raised on more grounded medications and, surprisingly, more peculiar ways of behaving. Talk had it that Coke had, a long time ago, quit fulfilling his thirst and had gone to rocks. Break Coke should be that new. In any case, David guaranteed that it was this medication propensity that at last drove Tina to begin going behind Matthew's back with no other individual other than Richard Lawson. David composed, and I before long found that, albeit despondently wedded, I was not experiencing anything without anyone else, heading toward the primary house to recover my console. One evening, I stumbled across Celestine kissing a man. I remembered him right away. Richard Lawson is a well-known entertainer. Pause, so Celestine is her genuine name? Okay, Tina. So it seemed like Tina was somewhat conveying conflicting messages to Richard, and it sort of made sense of why he remained balanced on her for quite a long time. This implies that Celestine purportedly was sufficiently agreeable to take part in extramarital entanglements, but she actually wasn't willing to completely focus on him. This ought to have been an ideal sign for him to simply get up and leave. In any case, he was fixated on Celestine. Ultimately, it was this fixation that put Tina or Celestine in the spotlight and put the spotlight on her union with Matthew. However, this doesn't imply that Matthew decided to zero in on her since he cheated constantly on her. His undertakings became increasingly open, and at one point he quit investing energy to keep his issues cautious. Furthermore, everyone before long figured out that he was undermining Tina, which was extremely humiliating. He ultimately got a lady pregnant, and she brought forth a child. This annoyed Tina so much that she sought legal separation from Matthew, as indicated by reports. Richard considered this to be one more chance for him to get Tina, and he began putting continued pressure on her. Over the long haul, he found out that she had petitioned for legal separation. However, it was not entirely set in stone to make her marriage work. So she canceled the separation procedures and attempted to fix things with Matthew. However, it worked out that Matthew was not as dedicated as she seemed to be, and he wound up getting another lady pregnant. Presently, this was the straw that broke the camel's back for Tina Celestina, and she petitioned for legal separation a subsequent time. Also, this time, she owned it. The separation was concluded in 2011, but once again, Richard continued to constrain her to allow him an opportunity. Right now, he has been consistently pushing that tension on her for around 30 years. Will you all trust that? This is crazy. Supposedly, they had their illicit relationship eventually during the 1990s. Yet it was so brief on the grounds that Tina finished it and she understood that he was getting increasingly fixated on her. Yet, on the grounds that things finished with Matthew, it doesn't imply that she was prepared to hop into a relationship with Richard, particularly since she was as yet pungent over how filthy Matthew did her. I hear that my ex is getting married now. This is my family. My ex is one of my loved ones. He is mine. So I'm really, I would rather not get into that by any means. That is not the very thing that I need. Yet at the same time, it actually harms a tad. Right. It's still a disaster for your self-image, isn't that so? It took Richard over 2 years to frighten her into a relationship. What's more, as of now, she is feeling bombarded by him. It likewise didn't help that she accepted that he kept sincerely coercing her by reliably getting her family associated with their relationship, since he knew how much her family intended for her. For instance, Richard had consistently asserted that Blue Ivy was the person who raised the subject of him proposing to Tina. In any case, a source guaranteed that Tina had consistently thought that he made up this charming story since he realized that Tina would cherish it in the event that he believed that Blue believed that they should be together. Additionally, there's the way that Richard made a point to tell the world that he got Beyonce and Solange's consent to propose. He said, "I called her kids, and I requested her hand in marriage from them. I believed that that was significant in light of the fact that I realized that it didn't have the potential for success, except if they were ready. I was lucky enough that they were totally ready and directly beyond absurdly amped up for it." In the long run, he persuaded a Latina, Tina, to get herself hitched to him. However, sources presently guarantee that Tina purportedly felt quite unsure about the marriage. She ultimately surrendered to him since he supposedly made her feel like she owed it to him since he had been asking her out for 30 entire years. Then, at that point, there's the way that she feels a certain way about him, not defending her when she got delayed virtual entertainment for evidently being discourteous to him. Also, I petitioned God for the sort of man I needed, and I got essentially that. Might it be said that he is awesome? By no means. In any case, he has a great deal of these characteristics. No. He has a great deal of the characteristics that I love. What's more, we're having a truly great time. What's more, I'm getting a charge out of now. As per Tina, she was misjudged by fans, and Richard's looks exacerbated it for her. She got hauled for a really long time, but Richard never let out the slightest peep or anything to attempt to get individuals to lay off of her. She asserts that this was only one of the many examples that made her see him in an unexpected way. What's more, That is the point at which she began to understand that Richard had been besieging her into a relationship that she had been running from for a really long time, and that she was unable to trust him to safeguard her when it made a difference. This was the point at which she understood how terrible her marriage was, and that she was too old to possibly be trapped in a marriage that presently did not serve her. All right, Salakina, she likewise concealed him in the entire circumstance on Instagram, saying, "I'm mindful, so as not to mistake greatness for flawlessness. I can go after greatness. Flawlessness is God's business." She additionally added the subtitle, "I went over this statement earlier today. I can't help but concur with Michael J. Fuck. I accept that any person who thinks they are great or that another person could be amazing is silly.